us on the call this evening. We are so incredibly excited to have you back with us. And I first want to thank each and every one of you that were on the call with us last evening. And we unfortunately experienced some pretty horrific technical issues. I was really devastated, and so I appreciate your patience. We wanted to be able to deal with that issue, and we did, and here we are this evening. So welcome. This is Tammy with Capital City REIA, and I am here with the very beautiful and lovely Miss Christina Thompson.
Hello.
And we have a very exciting evening scheduled for you tonight on Tuesdays with Tammy. And Christina is actually one of our inner circle members, and so I'm going to introduce her a little bit, and I'm going to allow her to share a little bit about herself. And then we're going to be interviewing Christina about where she was 1 year ago and what her life has been like, what the journey's been like on her acquisition, stabilization, reposition, refinance, and occupying of her property, and what that journey has been like, because we wanted to pull the curtains back and we wanted to be able to share with you exactly what this process looks like, so that for all of you that are excited about getting into multi-unit and think that it's not possible, there's no way you could ever own multi-unit, we're going to change your minds tonight, I guarantee you. So if you would just kindly take a minute, silence your cell phone so you're not distracted, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you have questions, there is a chat, and please feel free at any time to ask a question in the chat. And for those of you that are on the call with us already, if you would take a moment, just let me know you're out there, type in the chat. So again, we know the technology's working. Just say, hey Tammy, hey Capital City REIA, this is John, Susan. Just let me know that you are in fact out there, that you can hear us, that you can see the presentation. And Olga will be kindly looking and monitoring. Hey Vicky, Larry, hey guys, hey Valerie, Donna, Stephen, hey guys, awesome, welcome. So Olga's going to be monitoring the chat panel, and so if you do have any questions during this entire presentation at any time, please feel free to type your question in there, and Olga will gladly stop Christina and I so that we can answer your questions. So who is Miss Christina? Well, I love to joke and play around with Christina, and she knows how much I love her, and she knows that I'm joking, and she is what I call my fun size, and she is just an incredible ray of sunshine in my life, and is just full of passion, full of energy. And Christina works full-time. I'm going to let her explain a little bit about what she does and where she works. But she became a part of the inner circle a year ago, and right out of the gate, I mean, just immediately dove into what we were sharing and guiding her. And she emailed me, texted me, called me, and shared that she had a property that she wanted us to take a look at. And so not only is she and I joke about being challenged vertically with height, but this is a woman that is just beyond powerful, and what she does in her day life with her career is just extraordinary. We're going to talk about that. And now the difference that she's making in other people's lives. So Miss Christina Thompson, my fun size, my sunshine, good evening to you. Welcome. Thank you for being here again, and for understanding the technology issue last night. And I am so excited to have you be here. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me, because I do feel honored to be here tonight.
Wonderful. So I first, Christina, would like to start off with just talking a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, how long you've been investing. Obviously, I've put some photos up of where you spend the majority of your day.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as I've grown to know you and been on this journey with you, I've obviously become more just endeared to all that you do during the day and the incredible amount of children that you're focused on and your leadership and serving the military and their families. So would you mind just sharing a little bit about you and your thoughts on getting started in real estate and what it is that you do during the day?
Okay. Well, for starters, I currently work at Fort Detrick. I am a facility director for the Child Development Center that is on base. Currently, my center holds 131 children, and I supervise and oversight 30 caregivers currently. And ultimately, it's very challenging. It's stretching and growing me in a lot of different ways, but it's, you know, been quite the journey. And as far as real estate investing, I kind of was bit by the bug maybe a few years ago, but it wasn't until I attended a actual seminar, and Tammy came, and you know, she was just speaking about a couple things that kind of made my light bulb really go off, because you know, I did a little bit of wholesaling here and there, and I realized that that too was a job, and the ultimate goal once I decided to do real estate investing was to replace the 9 to 5 and have something more passive and do, you know, things that I ultimately enjoyed. So like I said, a couple years ago was when I started with, you know, a little wholesale deal here, and then I did something called a sandwich lease option, and that provided me with $250 worth of cash flow for 16 months. Once I got a taste of that cash flow coming in, I didn't want to stop. I wanted to find ways to continue to keep it going. And again, once I attended a particular seminar, Tammy spoke about multi-unit investing, and it just, the light bulb went off, because she spoke about, instead of buying several individual properties, why not buy, you know, one that houses several, you know, different families, and you know, get more, you know, more bang for your buck, so to speak. So it made sense to me, and I wanted in by any means necessary. So I fell in love with her spirit more than anything. It was genuine, and it's been genuine. So that's the great thing. It wasn't like, you know, some kind of show, but ultimately I got, you know, a really great person, and she was there for me when I needed her throughout the entire journey. And again, once I went to one of her, it was, she had an event, and then she also was talking about her 2-day event. And that's the one that I really wanted to go to, because she was talking about touring her 18-unit apartment building. And I'm like, you know, I want to see this. I want to be a part of it. I want to, you know, and once I did that, that's when I knew I wanted to be a part of the inner circle, because, you know, I knew that if I wanted things to change, or I needed things to change, that I was going to have to change what I was doing.
Wow, thank you. So Fort Detrick is in Frederick, Maryland, correct?
That is correct.
And what did you actually go to college for? Because I know you shared you went to college, you got your degrees. What did you actually go to college for?
So, so left field, but it all comes full circle. So I went to school. I went to Virginia State University, and I got my master's in clinical psychology in 2011, but I got my bachelor's in psychology in 2009. So little left field right now, but it all works in respect of understanding people and building relationships and networking, and just, you know, just being able to be relationable, or if that's even a word, be able to, you know, just communicate with people well, and to understand them and understand body language. So it works well when it comes to real estate investing. And of course, at my job, I do deal with some of those elements here, with some of the behaviors that I have to deal with my children and things of that nature. So I did go to school for psychology.
Awesome. And I know you have shared with me, Christina, that you love what you do. There's no doubt, or you wouldn't be doing it. But we've also talked about, you know, how real estate really is the vehicle now you see that can be the catalyst to create wealth and create freedom and
Right.
time. And you have shared with me, you know, that you go in crazy early hours. It's high stress, it's very intense, and you enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I know there's times where it's been 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you know, you're just walking out the door, you're the first one in, you're the last one out, you know,
Yeah.
and you're still, you know, excited about real estate and making it happen. And
Yes.
working full time, as a lot of people do, I know they question, how is it possible to be a real estate investor and still work full time? And it does require sacrifice, you
Yes.
know. So
Yes.
what were some of the sacrifices you have had to experience over the last year that you've, you know, you weren't really prepared for, you didn't know, but you knew you were going to have to sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
What has that been like for you in the real world? When we started this journey, what were some things you've learned that you've had to sacrifice?
Well, I'm a big vacation girl, and I probably did cut back on some of my vacations because it does require, you might want to have some funds just set aside. You don't have to have quadruple amounts of money, but just being mindful of making sure you're not creating excess debt for yourself, because you never really know when an opportunity could come your way, and you may want that capital that's there. So I did have to cut back on maybe some of the luxuries. Definitely a lot of time was spent, and what I learned more than anything, with especially working with you, Tammy, is your personal development is so important. And so I did spend a lot of time, reading and just educating myself, whether it be with you or whether it just be through listening to some podcasts or, things of that nature. So it gave up a lot of time, maybe some, of course, vacations. And my main thing was, if it needed to be done, I made it a priority. There weren't any excuses, because I could have easily given excuses when it came to things that came up along the way. But I knew that if I gave an excuse, then I wasn't going to reach my end goal. So I did have to, it's kind of like you have to learn to be resourceful at the same time, like really be resourceful, because what we're doing is so different than what we're being taught in school to do. So it is a lot of, thinking outside of the box that comes along with this journey. But nonetheless, my sacrifices were well worth it, because if it meant that I am where I am now because I have a cash flowing asset, it was worth it.
Yay! Yay! So one of the things that I admire and respect about you, and I've shared this with you, is that failure was not an option. It wasn't an option.
Right.
And, this story of what we're going to share tonight is really extraordinary, because we dealt with a lot of adversity, and it was frustrating at times, and you were pulling your hair out. I was ready to pull my hair out. But, you stayed steadfast, and you didn't give up, and you knew that it was one step after another, and without getting, unfocused and really disillusioned, we talked about, what's the next step? Let's stay focused on the next step. Let's get through that next step. And then when we get that done, then we'll move through the next steps. So, through the frustrations and what I call the real world, real life of real estate, which a lot of the gurus don't tell you about, the things that are unforeseen, or the personalities, or, the things behind the wall, or the change orders that you didn't know about, or that, little bit of extra money that, you had to throw in because of this or that. So, and now it's so hard for me to believe that it's been a year, and when we look back over what we've been through, it is just extraordinary. And I so wanted to honor you and be able to tell your story. So are you ready to dive in?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's go. So Christina, what you see here is the front side, the back side, and the side view of a property. And actually, on the back side of it, it was horrific. There was lots of trash. There was a whole entire, you know, I don't even know what it was. It looked like some closet, plywood that was all over the backside. And this photo is actually, it's a little bit cleaned up, but I just want to give everybody an overview of what we looked at. So at first, obviously, Christina, it all starts with that lead, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
can you share with everybody, how did you find this property? How did the lead come to you?
Mm-hmm.
Where did it start? You know, what kind of an individual was it, and how did they contact you, and then how did you follow up?
Okay. Well, I was initially on it. The lead actually came to me in an email. It was some other wholesalers that were just trying to show me what they had, and once it came to my email, and I saw the price at the time, and it kind of sparked my interest a little bit, because the fact that it was a 2-unit and it was priced, really well, at least what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat on it for a little bit, because I was initially I was afraid, because I'm like, I saw some of the pictures, and it looked like it needed some work, and I was like, well, I don't know, maybe I could do it, maybe I can't. But nonetheless, I ended up following back up with them, and once I got the lockbox code for it, that same weekend we had our first inner circle meeting, and I told Tammy about it, and I pretty much let her know, this is something that I wanted to take a look at, because the price was decent, and I love Baltimore. That's my investing area, and she came with me, and we took a look at it. And she gave me a guesstimate, a rough guesstimate of what she thought the amount of work that needed to be done. And she was awesome, because she worked with me. We got it under contract, because I did reach back out to the wholesalers, and initially they thought that I was trying to help them wholesale it. But once I explained to them that I was actually buying, they were like, okay. But
Right.
Tammy worked with me to get the price. Actually, she negotiated, got on three-way with me. We negotiated the price, down, and long story short, it ended up under contract, and kind of went from there.
So literally from a wholesaler, and
Mm-hmm.
let me back up even prior to that. How did you meet this wholesaler, right? Because they don't just send emails out to anybody. So you
Right.
had to have met them at an event to get on their buyers list. How did you meet these wholesalers?
Okay, well, a couple years ago, when I initially started with real estate investing, I started with wholesaling. I began to join different meetups. Once I realized I was interested in real estate investing, I had another fellow investor introduce me to the meetup, and logging into different meetup and linking in and letting people know what I'm interested in or what I'm doing. And once I did that, I began to, run into different buyers myself. And as I would talk to those buyers, they would connect me with other investors. So ultimately, that's how I ended up running into circles with the wholesalers that actually ended up selling me this one, is because I told them, put me on your buyers list, because some wholesalers they'll give you like a fee, like a small fee, if you find a buyer for their deals. And initially, that's how me and this particular wholesaler met, is because I had a buyer years ago that was interested in purchasing one of their properties, and we almost made it to the finish line, but things happened and the buyer backed out. But nonetheless, a relationship had been built and cultivated, because we had worked together for like almost a month trying to get that property sold with the end buyer that I had brought in. But either way, I still remained on their list, and that's how I ended up getting that actual deal. And to this day, I'm still getting deals from them, to this day.
Yeah. Now, didn't you share with me there was a story of you and two other investors who were buying a deal or had bought a deal and it
Yeah.
didn't work out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because I know we didn't talk about it a lot, but
Right.
you had, prior to Inner Circle Capital City REIA, prior to us working together, you had done a joint venture and really
Yes.
didn't know what you were doing, and it failed, and there were issues, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Yep. And I mean,
So,
we don't need to go into all of that, but it just talks about, you know, when you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you don't know, and you get into real estate without having, you know, a community to be a part of,
right.
unfortunately, you know, things can happen. So
Yeah.
anyway, yes, we took a look at this property,
Hmm.
and it is a 2-unit. When you walk in the front door, the first unit is on the first floor. That's a beautiful sunroom there
Yeah.
in the front of the building, and then the second floor is up on the second floor. But what is fascinating, and we'll get into that, and actually I'm going to back up. We'll get it back into that in a minute. But we got the property under contract. And when I say the numbers, Christina, it just staggers and blows my mind that you got this property for what you did. So would you
Right.
please be willing to share with everybody? I've got it, you know, on the HUD-1 and everything, but I don't know if they're actually going to be able to see the numbers on
Yeah.
the HUD-1 that you're signing on this screen.
Hmm.
What was the ultimate acquisition price?
$32,000. That was the purchase price for the actual home, and
Yep.
that included the wholesale fee.
Yeah, so when we sit here and look at the fact that you bought a 2-unit property for $32,000 that was going to generate, you know, a no-brainer amount of income for you, and we're not talking hundreds of thousands, but we're talking, you know, it's a big deal. I mean, this is great cash flow.
Yep.
And so it was so exciting to sit at that closing and to see that smile on your face, and to get that property tied up. Do you actually remember how much money you had to bring personally to the table?
Yeah, I had to bring, of course, you have my earnest money deposit. So I want to say maybe 2,500 total between a little bit of the closing and and also just the $1,100 earnest money deposit.
So for $2,500, you were able to acquire a 2-unit property that we were
Hmm.
going to renovate.
Hmm.
We were able to connect you with some local lenders that were
Hmm.
able to provide the acquisition and the renovation costs. It
Yep.
was transactional funding. It was hard money.
Hmm.
Um, and I know that was, you know, nail biting also because it's expensive money.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, when we look back at it, would you gladly pay hard money again to
Yep.
redo this type of a deal again?
I would. I
Yeah,
would.
because now look at what you own, right?
Right.
Yep,
Right.
absolutely. All right, so we got through the acquisition. 32,000 is what she paid for this property. And what is interesting is that up in the top left are the guys tearing apart some appliances. Obviously, we had to do demo first. The property is on Mondawmin Avenue in Baltimore. And we went through the property with the general contractors. And what you see down on the left, in the third photo from the left, that's the entrance coming into the front unit. And we decided to reconfigure the walls because we didn't like the layout.
Hmm.
And so that's what you see going on there, the reconfiguring of the walls. But the second photo from the left is now standing back at the kitchen looking out to the front door. And we decided to take down one big wall and
Hmm.
open up the dining room and the living room. We moved the bedroom up to the front of the property.
Mhm.
You can see up in the top left corner, that's actually a demoed bathroom up on the second floor in the second unit. But what was the most fascinating to Christina and I is down in the bottom right corner is a photo of the basement. And when we got there, I shared with Christina, I said, Christina, let's really take a look at this. I said, you've got a lot of windows, and obviously it had to be demoed out. There was a wooden floor that was demoed out, a couple walls. I said, look at this with me. I said, you've got a half bath down here, so you've got the plumbing, obviously the electric. I
Mhm.
said, you've got really nice size windows, but you also have an entrance
Mhm.
that is a full egress to this lower level. I said, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but I'm seeing another unit here.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh my God, Tammy, you're right. So we went ahead and agreed to fully demo out the basement and get it just completely cleaned out. And so after phase one of the project was completed, she and I agreed that once she got her, her bearings about her and got a little breath of fresh air, that we were going to go to the city and apply for a permit to actually create a third apartment. And this is an absolute bonus.
Mhm.
It's extraordinary. It'll probably be a studio or an efficiency, have its own separate entrance, and probably bring in another 700 to 800 a month for her. And that's where we are right this moment. We're actually in the process of gearing up to start that. But just wanted to show you guys a little bit of getting into the renovation. So we actually, I referred the GC to Christina, and this was somebody that I trusted. This was somebody that I respected, and they started off great. I mean, Christina, what were your thoughts? What was your opinion when we don't want to mention any names, but
Of course.
what was it that you felt you experienced when we started with these GCs? Like, what was that experience like for you when you're looking back at these photos of ripping out the walls and the place being a mess? What was that like for you?
Well, by nature, I'm a little bit of a anxiety bug. So initially, I was just worried only because it was so much that it looked like needed to be done. And initially, the contractors made me feel, pretty comfortable because, they were letting me know that it was compared to the line of work that was going on that they typically did, it was more of a smaller end project. So that made me feel like a little bit safe to know that it would be, done and squared away, and I wouldn't have to worry about it, and that they would have it done in no time. But I was still anxious because to me, with me looking at it from a perspective of not really knowing how to do renovations, it just looked like a lot of work, but I felt just a little bit safe that it would get done, but still anxious at the same time, just because I was looking for it to be done.
And this is the hard part of this interview, and I'm just going to share with everyone now. At Capital City REIA and Inner Circle, myself, this isn't about handing up big, fat, juicy profit checks, and talking about all the glory days. This is about real world, real life real estate, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we've experienced. And so everything started great, and the guys got rolling, and we were into what, Christina, maybe the beginning or the middle of October
Yep.
2016 at this point.
Yep.
And then by November, Thanksgiving, what started to happen, Christina? Because
Okay.
you did go take a vacation.
I,
You
I
did.
did. I scaled back though. I swear. I promise you, I had so many more that I had lined up, but I scaled back.
Yeah.
So, what happened was initially, like in the beginning, they were rolling. Every time I went, this was happening, that was happening, and even when they first started work, just to take it back a little bit, when they first started work, I remember, I think they told you one day, and they actually even started a few days earlier. So I was wondering who was in the property doing this and that, and then you gave a phone call and were like, oh, they started earlier than what they said. So we were so excited. However, as I started to go around the time frame of October, I went on vacation for my 30th birthday. Then I came back, and I was expecting so much to be done because the projected date that this project was supposed to have been done was December. So when I got back beginning of December after my trip to Puerto Rico, I was like, Tammy, it's not going anywhere. Like, I'm seeing less and less done, or the same exact thing done, or maybe the most would be done week after week would be maybe a new light bulb was in, or like a light fixture had been changed, but it wasn't much. It was still a lot of debris. It was still a lot of work that obviously needed to be done, and I just knew it wasn't going to be done by that December time frame that we had discussed. So I did reach out to Tammy to let her know my concerns, to say this is going nowhere quickly.
And of course, being her first project and me being the one that referred her to the GC, we're not panicking, but there's angst. I mean, I'm feeling very disappointed in the GC. We're contacting them, and of course then it just rolls, right? It's excuse after excuse, it's delay after delay. It was just one thing after another, and this project literally should have been in and out in 6 weeks tops. I mean, that's it, and that's what they had promised us. Well, now we roll through December. Now we roll into January. We've got temperatures way below freezing. End of January, we're rolling now into the beginning of February 2017. These guys are now really, really upsetting us. They're not getting stuff done. We're calling them out and things that they promised that they're not doing. And it now Christina and I are doing the good cop versus the bad cop, and we're team tagging them, and she's texting them and calling them, and I'm texting them and I'm calling them. And yet we've already given them, 2 draws at this point. And next thing we know, they come back with a change order for the bathroom. So we have to get that done. And she and I were on the ball. We did everything we said we were going to do, we were supposed to do. I was showing up unannounced, surprise visits, taking tons of photographs, calling Christina saying, look, nobody's been here today. We were following up with them, and again, calling them out, and it just kept being excuse after excuse. And ultimately I said, Christina, this is your project. What do you want to do? Do you want to bring in another GC? And she's like, no, let's try to get through this. Let's try to get this done. So it became very, very contentious. I had to eventually resort to, threatening them legally to bring attorneys in. And, of course, at that point, they wanted to only talk to Christina. They didn't want to talk to me because I was holding them accountable. And, there were 2 separate conversations where I literally called them out on a lie. And when I did that, it upset them. But I said, look, you know what, guys, just be straight up, be transparent. We may be female, whatever it is you're thinking, but don't lie. Just tell us. She's carrying this project with hard money. You promised us you'd get it done in 6 weeks. It's not getting done. And Christina and I just stayed on top of them and stayed on top of them, and she communicated, with all the parties involved. But it was frustrating. It was a huge disappointment because I had referred these guys to her, and I felt like I was letting her down, but that was my issue. And she said, Tammy, it wasn't your fault. You didn't know they weren't going to be responsive. And really what they did is they backburnered her project because they got a big $1 million project in Baltimore downtown. And when I learned that they had this big $1 million project and they backburnered her project, which was a $65,000 rehab, which to Christina's is equal to $1 million because, you know, this is her first project. It is a big deal. So it was just, it was an insult. It was a slap in the face. It was just a total disappointment. But ultimately, we prevailed. I started to back down and let Christina start to negotiate with them and work with them. But she always let me know what was going on. And finally, what was the date, Christina, that we actually got the project done?
I got my use and occupancy. It was eight. It was April. It was either April 4th or April 5th was when I finally got my use and occupancy done, and the project was officially, you know, ready to be rented that date. But again,
Yep.
Contract said December. I didn't get my use and occupancy until April.
Yep. So these contractors literally drew this entire project out another 4 months, which was completely unnecessary. And of course, you know, like I said, Christina was paying hard money, and you know, they didn't seem to care. She and I were adamant that, you know, we were going to get this done. And even when we did the walkthrough, I brought my husband in to do the walkthrough because I wasn't trusting these guys. It was back in January. It was bitter cold, and they told us that the project was done, and we show up, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Christina, we used almost an entire roll of blue painter's tape, marking up the entire property, which they said was done, but it wasn't done. And the quality of the work looked like it had been slapped together by a kindergartner. And we just blue taped the whole entire house up and wrote with magic marker all over the areas. And they came back in, but it was constantly like they would fix something or a couple things, and then we'd have to get them back in. And it was it was excruciating. And then it came to getting the final inspection done. And it was one thing after another. The electrician was holding it up, or the plumber was holding it up, or it was BG&E. And, you know, finally, you know, Christina just stayed on top of it. I stayed on top of her. I supported her, and I said, look, clearly we're not getting anywhere with them. Why don't you call down to zoning? Let you take control of this. You find out about your UNO. Let's get this thing done. And ultimately, she did. And it is a beautiful property. It's an end unit. And from the looks of it, you would never know that it is a 2-unit. In fact, most of all the other properties on that street in that neighborhood look like single-family homes. And what I wanted to share with everybody tonight on this call is just this. So many times as investors, we may get a lead on a property, we may go out and take a look at it, and from the exterior, it's very deceiving because you may look at it and say, oh, it's just a single family, when in fact it's a legally zoned 2-unit or 3-unit. And that happens all the time in Baltimore. So this is why you've got to do your due diligence. You've got to get inside these properties, because there is nowhere that I know of on God's green earth that you can go buy a 2-unit. Now we're going to take it to a 3-unit for $31,000, put $65,000, $70,000 into it, refinance and take the hard money lender out, get 2 amazing tenants in there, have it cash flowing. We're getting ready to talk about that now. And, you know, where else? I mean, on the webinar we did last month, you know, I shared with you that Baltimore is number 2 in the country behind Clayton, Georgia, for landlords, for buy and hold, for property owners. You know, huge rates of returns, huge profit margins, and it's just such an amazing opportunity right now in Baltimore, and really, really exciting. So we talked about marketing and how we were going to find tenants. You know, and working with me and being a part of the inner circle. I mean, we literally are going through the whole entire process together. And she ordered a banner very inexpensively. I don't remember. Christina, how much was that banner? I know it wasn't much.
It wasn't. I think it was like 65, if that, and that may have included shipping. So
Yeah, so
it wasn't bad.
yep, so for $65, she put a nice banner out, and the guys, the GCs, were actually supposed to hang the banner up across the two top windows. We
And this
couldn't even, yeah, and we couldn't even get them to do that. So Christina finally said, you know what, I'm going to put it out. I want it out. We got it on the front fence.
well, that's
And,
what they did.
oh, that's what they did?
When I came back, they was like, "Oh yeah, we got you," because pretty much after, let me. Tammy was awesome with working with this because, you know, I jokingly call her my pit bull in a skirt because that's what she became because she was so passionate about it. And once she was telling them she was going to get lawyers or legal action involved, I came one day and there were like 5,000 people on that. Literally, it was. I hadn't seen so many contractors in one place at a time. It was crazy. It literally looked like a construction site because there were so many people there that were
Wasn't
there
it
to
like
do.
30? Wasn't it like 30 or 32 guys? Yeah.
Without exaggerating, Timmy, it was no lie. At least 12 guys there, and every time
Wow.
I looked and turned the corner, there was another guy that was either supposed to be touching up mortar, doing this, and I was like, wow. But nonetheless, they were all trying to de-escalate the situation, so everybody was kind of being nice. And I told them before I left, I said, if you don't mind, can you please put my sign up? So they're like, oh yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem. And I did ask them to hang it, over the window, so to speak, so it's, noticeable. Well, lo and behold, I come back like, I think it was like maybe a couple days later just to look to see what was going on, and that's what I find in my banner on the fence.
On the fence.
I
Yeah.
just said, you know what, I'm not really surprised because this is kind of how the project has been going. So, I shouldn't have expected too much. But nonetheless, yes, they put that out there.
But, it was $65.
Right.
And we also talked about, how are we now going to get really great residents? We talked about the power of having an unbelievable application process, the
Mm-hmm.
screening process. You got one application in from a gentleman that actually to the left of the home on the other side of the street is a church. And he actually saw us outside and started talking to us. We got an application on him. We screened him. Christina and I, ran a full background check. We analyzed it. I showed her how important it is and why it's so important to do due diligence on screening your residents and how to look for debt to income ratios and, the credit scores and what's important, what's not important. I mean, we really, really dove into it. I think it was maybe 2 or 2.5 hours that we sat on the phone
Mm-hmm.
that night talking about that.
Right.
And I said, Christina, I know it's winter. I know it's spring's coming, but I really would love to see you put an ad on Craigslist. We talked about how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I met her at the property, showed her how to take really, really great photos of a property, because believe it or not, seriously, taking photos, there's an art to it, but we have great cell phones these days. And we took some really great photos. She put it on Craigslist. I happened to end up going out of town, and I said, I think it's critical that you do an open house. And she said, for a rental? And I said, absolutely. So she had all the lights on, had the house looking absolutely tip-top gorgeous. What you see here are the finished photos. I get teary-eyed looking at this. Oh my God. So it was a really magical day because she took the applications, she went to the property, she did an open house. And Christina, tell that story just about getting the calls from the Craigslist and the people that met you there, and what was that experience like for you?
Well, here's the thing. It's always fun to listen to what's being told to you. You do it and it actually works. That's always fun because there's always a little bit of skepticism with doing anything new, regardless if it's riding a bike or bungee jumping. So initially when Tammy was talking about marketing, she did tell me about making a really good descriptive Craigslist ad. So when I went ahead and did that and did my own little rendition, and I started marketing, and I actually started getting quite a bit of, you know, action or responses, that was it was really nice. I guess that's the best. It was really, really nice to actually be taking calls from, you know, prospective tenants, and just being able to know that this is really about to happen. So I would take the calls, and then of course I did end up buying little, I guess if you want to call them,
Bandit
like I bought
signs.
some. Thank you. Yes. Well, that came eventually, but more so like shower curtains. So some staging. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, but
Yes.
we did.
Yes.
We chose to do very light staging.
Yes.
Like, yeah, like
Yes.
candles and towels and
Yeah.
shower
So it was
curtains.
very minimal. Very
Yeah,
minimal.
we didn't
Because I,
do
you know,
all
I
the
still.
furniture. Right.
No, not at all. But what I did still worked just well, because everything that I was doing was still within a budget. I still, you know, was trying to maintain a budget. And at this time, I went to Walmart, bought like 2 shower curtains, a couple towels, and little things to decorate the sinks, and, you know, little flower. It was like around Easter time, so they had those little fake bouquets of flowers. So I put those in the kitchen, and then I laid out my applications and my leases, just kind of, you know, waiting for people to come. So I did, you know, hold open house and had quite a few activity, you know, coming through. But after I, you know, had learned the basics and the fundamentals at the same time of what to look for with screening a tenant, you know, I did go through quite a few numbers before I got to the tenants that I do have now. And I'm like, that alone is priceless. That experience that I got and the lesson that I learned with screening tenants was priceless, because I've heard about the horror stories of getting tenants in and then having to fight tooth and nail to get them out if you don't screen properly. So I did, you know, I wasn't afraid to say no. I had, you know, once Tammy had kind of shown me what the standard was, I didn't deter from that. Like, I wasn't questioning, and I probably was even being a little bit more scary, like, no, because what if this and what if that? So I would, you know, say no, because I didn't want to run into a situation where, you know, worst case scenario did happen. You know, even something as simple as a judgment. You know, I ran into a couple people that had, you know, $12,000 in total worth of judgments, and I spoke to Tammy about it, and she kind of was like, understand that if something were to happen, you're going to have to wait in line to get your money. That automatically, that had me running for the border, because I'm like, I'm not doing that. So just that lesson alone was vital. The open house was so exhilarating, also mainly because it was something that I've always wanted to do, and to see it manifesting right before my eyes, and tenants, you know, and they love the property, even regardless of if it was someone that was a prospective tenant that had a Section 8 voucher, or even if it was a, you know, a regular fair market tenant. They all loved it. They all loved it, but at the same time, everybody just didn't have the qualifications to get it. So
Awesome. Tina, do you mind if we take a couple questions?
Oh, sure.
Awesome. So Jeremy wants to know who was the GC on this. And Jeremy, I love the question, but due to, you know, the nature of the situation and being professional and respectful, I'd rather not disclose the names of the GC, because we did have such a really, really difficult time with them. Now, if somebody wanted to reach out to me privately, you know, and have that conversation, I certainly don't mind sharing that in a private setting, but on a public space, I would rather be respectful of them and not share that. So Terrence says, so looking back in hindsight, when you noticed the slowdown in the work, when you should have fired the GC and the crew, what month was that? And Terrence, I'm going to let Christina talk, but I'm going to answer first, is just because work slows down doesn't mean you fire a GC. And when you are that involved already and you've already given them 2 draws for the work and material is sitting on the job site, it's not easy to quote-unquote just fire the GC. We were putting pressure on them. We were holding them accountable, and ultimately we did not provide the final draw, and they did not get paid the final draw until she had her UNO. So Christina, what I know you and I had many conversations
Yeah.
about firing them, because I said, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if you want me to fire them, I'll pull the plug right now. I'll fire
Right.
them. We can bring
Right.
another GC in. But I
Right.
also had to be respectful of Christina's thoughts and wishes, and
Right.
she really wanted to try to make this work. So can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that?
I played with that idea, and when we talk about around what month, I want to say I was beginning to really feel the pressure by, like, I want to say maybe end of February, that it was really getting bad because, you know, I was just getting a lot of excuses. Now, again, I did think about the amount of money we had already dished out. And then I also, it was a little bit of fear, because what I did not want to happen is that, what if it took forever for another GC to get in there and really be able to do what needed to be done in a timely fashion? And what if their price, you know, was going to be way more than what I already, you know, had to put out to finish the project? So it was a lot of things that I was concerned about, because sometimes people can go in and nitpick other people's work, and then they'll be looking to try to fix this and fix that, and those are things that I just didn't want to take place. And no, and because all I kept hearing in my head and in my mind, because I was already having to pay interest on the hard money, I didn't want the price of everything to just keep skyrocketing and skyrocketing. So the work was getting done, it was just getting done slow. Like, now, if had they just not had they just stopped working altogether, of course it would have been a different ball game. It's just, it was slowing up, and it just wasn't to, you know, what my expectation. But working with his, you know, the person's assistant was making it a little bit better. But I just, firing them did not make me feel good, because, again, I just kept thinking, what if I get with someone new and it's worse and more money that I'll have to dish out?
And also, Christina, because we had, you know, we went back and forth on so many different possibilities, is
Mm-hmm.
that Christina's right. And let's say we fired him, Terrence, and then we decided to go out and find another GC. That GC may not have even been able to start her project for
Right.
another, you know, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days.
Right.
And we felt collectively, if we just kept the pressure on them, and then ultimately when we started, you know, threatening that we were going to bring, you know, attorneys in, that really lit a fire underneath of them. And they just, you know, like Christina said, she showed up one day. It was funny. It's not funny, but it was funny, because she called me, and it was the day that the appliances were to be delivered. And she had agreed to meet the appliance delivery guy there. And she walks in, and literally there's like 4 guys on each floor, and one, you know, 2, they're painting the cabinets in the
Mm-hmm.
picture you see here in the upper left, and
Mm-hmm.
they're scrambling. I mean, they're literally scrambling to try to get stuff done.
Right.
And, you know, it was funny to hear, because she's like, everywhere I turned, there was another guy, and, you know, there was another guy, and there's another guy here, and then there was 2 guys down in the basement. Like, but it finally they realized that we were relentless. We were not going to give up. We were team tagging them. I was showing up unannounced. Christina was showing up unannounced on different days. We were playing good cop, bad cop. We documented the whole experience. We time-stamped everything. We took lots of photos,
Mm-hmm.
because we started to prepare for the worst, that if we did have to go to court, that we
Mm-hmm.
were going to be heavily documented. And they assured us they were going to get it done. They were going to get it done. And ultimately they did. Were
Mm-hmm.
we 100% satisfied? No. But you know what? At the end of the day, they got it done. And even then, between the hard money lender, Christina, and I, until she truly walked through it and said, I'm satisfied, sat down with them, agreed on, you know, the change order. They tried to jack her up for another, I don't know, $12,000. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, guys, look, I said, we have a signed contract with a $50 per day per diem penalty for every day that the project's not done. You are now 4 months behind schedule. That's
Mm-hmm.
120 days times 50. We were pushing like, I don't know, $4,000 just in a penalty. And I said, Christina, don't open your mouth about it. Don't say anything about it. Don't bring it up. It's in writing and it's signed, and it was their contract.
Yep.
So she was able to literally go into a negotiations with the GC at the end of the day. And she held the check back and she said, here's your check. And if you want to receive your check, then here's the lien release waiver that has to be signed. And, you know, I'm not going to hand you this check until you sign this final lien release waiver and we agree on a price. And ultimately, they did. And, you know, I'm so proud of her for how she negotiated. And I said, you know what, Christina, there is nothing in this project that we haven't now experienced. I said, on your first project, you've experienced a horrible GC, a horrible process. It went over the timeline that it was supposed to. It went a little bit over budget. You know, we had to deal with change order. We had to go back to the lender. Like, we had to do these things. But I also shared with her, if you're going to learn all of that, and now you know there is no other transaction, I know for a fact, because I know this girl, there is nothing she can't handle. And she has grown so much in the past year in her confidence and her ability to negotiate, in her screening, knowing what to look for, learning about construction, knowing the language of construction, dealing with this city, getting her UNO. She absolutely made it happen no matter what. So I'm so proud of you. Let's see what other questions we have here. So what is your take on having to change a GC on the same project? And that's also by Jeremy. Jeremy, I think we actually answered that. You know, there are going to be times when push comes to shove, when you're backed into a corner and you absolutely have to fire a GC. And like Christina and I shared, we definitely had that conversation. We did. But we had to weigh the possibilities and the pros and cons of if we do this. So Christina and I wanted to be more responsive versus reactionary, right? And because they had already received the two biggest draws, that was 60% of their pay. They had already received it. So if they walked off the project and had received that money, we would have sued them anyway. And you know, once the assistant came on board, who didn't know very much about construction, he ran the back office. I mean, he was just terrified. He was terrified of a lawsuit, and he started just begging Christina, you know, what do we do? What do we need to do? How can we make this work? So, you know, at the end of the day, it was about a team. Despite the adversity, it was about Tina and I, you know, team tagging, playing good cop, bad cop. Instead of getting all emotional and fired up, we were frustrated, but we worked through everything together. And she's like, well, Tammy, what do you think? And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to do? These are our options. Let's talk about this. And you know, when I look back on the whole entire process, was it frustrating? Yeah. But then I look at how much she has grown and what she has learned. And you know what? If I could say that I helped her spread her wings and I gave her the wind beneath those wings to fly and to experience everything that an investor could experience in one transaction, she did. You know, she really has. And it's so exciting. So, you know, she got the first tenant in, and then she had to, you know, we had to get this hard money paid off and get out from underneath of that. So we had to go through the whole the whole refi process. So obviously, you know, we celebrated success, no doubt, but now I need you to share the most fun part of the whole entire story, where you found your lender that you now have your permanent financing with, because this just trips me out.
Yeah. So when it came to looking for someone to refi with, it really starts with just taking action. Like, that's really important because um, I went to a small local community bank because that's all I kept hearing in my head, because I remember sitting in the inner circle meeting trainings and always hearing small local community banks. That's just what echoed in my head. So I started with a bank literally right around the corner from my house. And I didn't necessarily go with that one particular bank, but I did meet with a teller that was telling me they're getting ready to go to a home show. And I didn't pay it any mind when she said it the first time, but then as we still continued to talk and I let her know what my needs were and, trying to find out how they can help me get out of, my hard money at the time, she kept saying, well, we have this, we have that. All right, well, we're getting ready to go to the home show. So I was like, you know what, well, what's a home show? So, and she pretty much told me it's a place where they have all these different vendors for your home needs, whether it's vendors for windows or roofers or local banks that you may need for financing, or BGE was there, or Potomac Edison. It was just all these different vendors that you can go that will service you and your home needs. So I decided I'm going to go to this home show because I want to see what's there. So that's where I actually met my actual bank. And they were so helpful. It was so many banks there, and I was so grateful. I had so much fun at this little home show. And that's where I ended up making a great connect with the local community bank that I decided to go with. And the lady that I was working with the entire time was so helpful. She was on top of it. She, followed up with me regularly until this process got from, me sending in the initial application all the way up to my commitment letter. And she was just really, 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 really good. And the terms were really great, of course, much better than what I was, but nonetheless, hard money, it has its purpose, and it served its purpose. So I ended up going with the local federal. It was actually a credit union that I went with that's local to my area.
And so I just laughed. I was giggling and I was laughing because she's literally telling me she's at this bank and they're closing the doors and they're telling her about this home show, and she's like, home show? What's a home show? Where's that at? And she literally just scooted right over to the home show.
I did. I went
and if you hadn't done that,
right,
you would never have met your current lender, and we wouldn't be here where we are today, and she wasn't afraid to be uncomfortable and to step out and to go see what it was, and even though she didn't know, she did it. I mean, she just did it, and that's what it takes. You gotta just jump. You gotta go. You gotta ask questions. You gotta get out there. And she called me on the phone and she was telling me about it, and I'm like, oh my God, get out of here. This is awesome. And then it came time to do the appraisal. And, we were talking about it, and I said, look, when it comes time for the appraisal, it's important that you be there. I said, it's probably not going to take a long time, but it's really important that you be there. I said, a lot of times, especially in today's society with the lending practices and guidelines having changed, they may not share very much with you, but it's important to shake their hand, see if you can build some rapport with them, and if there's anything, that you can help them with. And so the day came for the appraisal. Oh my God. Christina texted me and called me. She was hysterical. She's like, oh my God, what if it doesn't appraise? And what about this? And what about that? What if? And I said, Christina, the appraisal hasn't even been done yet. Relax. We're going to get through this one step at a time. Let's stay focused. So she did. She met the appraiser out there. And if you want to tell them a little bit about how amazing of a relationship it was for you, and you guys just totally connected. It was really cool. You mind sharing just a little bit about that?
I'll give you a little bit about that. I found out that the appraiser, one, he was really nice because I was a little bit under some time constraints, but I made it my business to make myself available for him regardless of what, because I knew how important it was to be there. And initially when I got there, the first thing I noticed when I got out of my car was that he was a member of a fraternity that we had at my college campus when I was in college. So, I noticed that, firsthand. But then I also noticed, he was outside initially just looking around, taking notes and looking around. Then he would, walk up to the front of the property, take some more notes. So I was like, I want to know what he's looking at. So I just kind of started questioning little things here and there. And then before I knew it, my question here and there almost turned into somewhat of a full-blown conversation just about properties and what they're looking for. And when he would write down something, I would ask, well, why are you writing this down? Things of that nature. And then ultimately he started to just ask me questions also about, the property and how I found it and, things of that nature. He was saying that it was really nice and how, the renovations were looking pretty good and stuff like that. And, towards the end, we ended up just building a really good rapport, really nice guy. And he had been telling me that he's been doing this for several years. And actually, I think he said 15 plus years that he had been doing this. And, he really liked it and enjoyed it. So, and, he just was asking me personal questions, just more so about the property, stuff like that. So, it was just nice to see him be so, approachable, because I don't know, I guess I had it in my mind that he was going to be like just writing and kind of, really kind of curt and to the point and not really want to talk, but he was a really nice guy.
Yeah, because we had shared, that even with appraisers, they've got a job to do. They've got to figure out the value. Mm-hmm. And I had shared with Christina, I said, look, don't be surprised if he's kind of curt and cold and, doesn't want to engage in conversation, because sometimes they're like that. Mm-hmm. And you have to respect that. But right. Then other times, they have a real fun personality. And, what I had shared and what we share all the time in Inner Circle is always finding a commonality and finding something to connect with the person on, whether it's a resident, a seller, a vendor. Mm-hmm. And Christina knew to find something that was a commonality where she could connect with him, and she did. It was a license plate. Seriously, it was a license plate tag. Yeah. And it broke the ice. And he happened to be very, very approachable, and it was really awesome. And I don't remember how many days it was, Christina, you called and you're like, oh my God, an appraised. Yes. And she was so excited, so incredibly excited. And then, I don't know, was it a couple days or so, we were waiting on what is called a commitment letter or a term sheet, which the bank sends out describing, the rate and what they're going to agree to do on the loan. And even though it's a 2-unit, they treated this as a commercial loan. They did. And so, she was getting ready to sign the lease on the first unit, but we didn't have anybody yet for the second unit. Mm-hmm. And I think it was it maybe like a week or so later, Christina, when you yes. called me and the email came in that you got the commitment letter. Yeah. Yep. So I was really, I just was ecstatic about it all. And I knew that now here's the thing, with the commitment letter, they had let me know that ultimately they were going to move forward with me, but what they were telling me is that I had contingencies. So once I fulfilled that other contingency, which was renting the second unit. Now, to me, the renting of the units wasn't the big to-do. For me, it was just making sure that appraisal came back. So that's what I was, really, I was telling Tammy, like, I'm faith in a prayer, because you just never really know. You never really know. And also, because if you don't understand and know Baltimore like that, it's a block by block kind of business out there. So, and even though something may be right across the street from you, it may not necessarily be a true comp to what you have right there. So those were the things that I was not sure, but it was all about faith for me and just taking the action. So once the appraisal came back, well, like I said, I wasn't concerned about the tenant thing. It was just the appraisal. So once I called Tammy and let her know, like, oh my goodness, they're just telling me I need my lease, the appraisal, we're in the clear, I could have tap danced all through my front lawn. That's how excited I was. And
I called Tammy and she celebrated. She cried with me because I was like, I'm not saying I didn't think it was going to happen, but just to know I had to have faith because I wasn't sure. I was
And
not
I
100%
wish
sure.
I could have had a camera because literally she's screaming, I'm crying, she's crying. Like it's the ultimate. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, yes, we did it, we made it
Yeah.
happen, and it made it. But then there was a little bit of a lag because the couple of tenants that came and applied for an application, she
Yeah.
didn't want them.
No.
She and and then she was calling her lender and she couldn't get a hold of her, and she was emailing her and she couldn't get a hold of her, and then she started to panic, and so she reached out to someone else at the lender's office, and come to find out the lender that she was working with was no longer there.
Right.
And they ended up bringing someone else in her place. And when she called him on the phone, when Christina called the new guy on the phone, what did he say to you?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So when I called the new guy and he was like, okay, well, the other lady wasn't there, but he was like, oh yeah, your appraisal is back. And I'm like, instantly I'm like, gulp. Because that's what I was really waiting for initially, was to hear from the previous lady, because she used to call me like 2-3 times a week. So when I didn't hear anything, of course my anxiety goes through the roof because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, did something happen? The whole time she was gone, but nonetheless, he was like, your appraisal is good. How soon can you close? But then he did, mention, okay, well, I know you have to get that other tenant in place. But he was so nice, and they were so nice about it, because he was just kind of like, all right, well, look, I know you wanted to try to get this done as early as the beginning of June, but due to the fact that you don't have it rented, we'll kind of just wait until you get that other tenant squared away. So instantly that put me into beast mode, because I was working with, outside of doing my own marketing, I was working with a couple tenant placement companies that I had built rapport with along the way, and some of them I even found on Craigslist, and one of them helped me get the first unit rented. But what I learned in all of this, my best friend was my 6 little bandit signs that I ended up putting out, and I could not believe the amount of response that I got from 6 bandit signs. And all I got was the corrugated plastic with the little prong things to put in, black
Yeah.
magic marker, something small, little description. 6 of them I put out at like 8 o'clock at night in Baltimore. You would not believe the amount of response that I got, to the point where even after it was rented and good to go, what I learned is you got to make sure that when you go put them out, you got to remember where you put them, because then I still had people calling well after I had signed off on the lease. So, that was one of the main things that I learned, that I probably do bandit signs first, because I didn't even need to worry about, too much anything else outside of that. So I was really excited once I finally got that second lease signed, the early June. It was like maybe June 9th. I got my lease signed. They wanted to see copies of the money orders, and they wanted to see the signed lease that stated that the tenant was going to be there for a year. And once I signed that, we closed literally the day before I went on vacation.
Yeah, and that was June 13th.
That was June
And
13th.
it was an amazing settlement. Here she is, signing that final refi. And your monthly payment literally was cut in half, right, Christina?
Oh my goodness. Cut in half is not the word. Yes, cut in half.
Yeah.
So
So now
happy.
your mortgage payment is how much?
735.
And you're bringing in gross how much per month?
1680.
And so we get this third unit rented for 700. Now you're literally talking about 2,300 a month from one property that you paid $31,000 for.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take many of those, does it, Christina, to be able to walk away from Fort Detrick and never look back?
You better say that again.
And what is so funny is that I said, look, take a breather, go on vacation. She took a little cruise. I said, get yourself together and give yourself a little bit of time, and then, we'll get back out there and look at another one. And she called me up a couple days, 4 days 4 days after coming back from the cruise, and she said, Tammy, I really need to talk to you. Are you okay? Can you call me? And I said, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, but I really, really need to talk to you. So I called her and I said, is everything okay? And she goes, it's too quiet. Like, is it supposed to be this quiet? I busted out laughing and I said, oh my God. I said, are you experiencing the sound of success? You know, that you're celebrating the silence, that like everything is perfect. There's no contractors, no drama, no tenants, no worry. And she goes, I don't know if I like this. She goes, I'm ready to start looking for my next deal.
Yeah.
So literally, she's back out on the street again. She's already found another 3-unit. Hopefully, we're getting ready to tie this 3-unit up.
Yes.
And this looks like a really big one, a nice size.
Yes.
And a true 3-unit.
Yes.
So, you know, when you're addicted and you see what it's like to make a difference in people's lives and be a part of an inner circle and a group and have the support, you know, it just becomes a way of life because you're starting that journey to create financial freedom. And, you know, Christina knows realistically she can't leave her job right this second.
Of course.
Does she work hard? Yes. But she knows literally in a couple years, if she keeps up this momentum, which she can handle, then literally in a couple years, she's going to be totally set, financially free, independent for the rest of her life. So another question that we had, Tina, was what was the research you did for analyzing the area of where this property was?
Well, a lot of it for me was kind of hands-on, mainly because I had started doing real estate investing a couple years prior to doing this. I started like initially, you know, for wholesalers, they call it somewhat of driving for dollars, where you're just literally driving around neighborhoods. I knew that certain areas in Baltimore, like West Baltimore, depending on where you are, of course, which block, the neighborhoods get better. And I also, you know, did some rough estimates on like Zillow or Redfin, just trying to get guesstimates. Not saying that I held true to what was put out there, but it let me know, you know, what homes particularly are selling for. And of course, working with Tammy, she definitely was, you know, assisting me and letting me know, like, okay, well, you might want to look at what has been sold, you know, within the last 6 months or the last 3 months to gauge, you know, where sales are and what homes are going for potentially. So that was some of the research that I did, knowing some of the areas that were, you know, good and not so good. And again, like I said, with Baltimore, it's tricky because literally you can be 2 blocks up the street and homes can be selling for, you know, 150, 160, 170, you know, so to speak. And then you can go 2 blocks the other way and homes can vary from sales from 10,000 on a shell to, you know, maybe, I don't know, 70 max. So it really, it varies. And then not to mention, mine was a little tricky because my 2-unit is the only like multi-unit on that block. So, you know, it took some research and, you know, and then not only just my research, but maybe trusting the research of others, you know, that to get to my numbers.
Yep. Here's another really great question from Sonia. We went over this, but I'd like to touch on this a little bit because this is the importance, Christina, remember, of us talking about the contractor documents and what documents we had to use and why we had to use them and why they were important. And the question is, did you have a daily penalty for the GC if they went over the promised finish date?
Yes.
And did you deduct that from the final draw and, you know, covering the carry costs? So
yes,
the average that I see is $50 to $100 per day. This was $50 a day. And it was clearly written in the agreement. It was signed by all parties. And we held them to that. We did not, Christina and I chose not to forcefully bring it up and vocalize it and remind them every time, you know, you got a $50 a day. I said, Christina, just let it sit. Let that $50 a day just keep building up and building up, because at the end of the day, when they get it done and they come back and say they're going to be owed this much money, I said, we're going to sit there and pull this right out and go, right here, buddy, here's the contract that you signed right here saying $50 a day penalty. The end date, finish date was December. Even then we gave you another week after that gratis, but now it's 4 months later. And we did. And that's why having critical paperwork is so important. And obviously, you know, it's taking years to acquire this, but my inner circle knows that they get access to that. Great questions, guys. Let's see what else we got here.
Yep.
All right, Javier says, this is probably a beginner question, but why did Christina use a hard money lender over a mortgage for a rental property?
Okay.
And now, Christina, you're in a position where you understand this, and I'm going to let you answer.
So, and from what I see, most banks are not going to give you a mortgage on a house that needs a lot of work. I know for me personally, I use my hard money because, one, they took care of about 100% of everything for me. Banks are not going to do that. Banks, they're always going to require some type of down payment, typically 20 to 25%, and maybe depending on who you work with, maybe even more. And maybe for some people, they have that good old 20 to 25% sitting and can acquire, you know, a property. But in my case, that wasn't necessarily the case with this because I'd seen the amount of work that needed to be done. So I did choose to go with transactional funding because it took care of the purchase price of the house and it took care of all the renovations for me. So that is why I chose to go with the transactional funding as opposed to going to a regular bank that is going to make me, first of all, the banks are going to require so much documentation and they're going to be looking at me, whereas transactional funding is looking at the property and not me. So that's why I chose to go with the transactional funding. And that's why a lot of people go with transactional funding.
Yep, and she's absolutely right because, Javier, when you have a property that has been vacant for 2 years, which this had been, when it needs, you know, $65,000, $70,000 worth of work and it's vacant, there is not many lenders or banks, if any, honestly, that will even listen to you or entertain the idea of giving you a loan. So the only way as an investor that you can take down this property is to use transactional funding. Is it expensive money? Yes. But when you buy a property, right, as Christina did for $31,000, and her appraisal, you know, was high enough, and we knew with a $65,000, $70,000 budget that left her room for her hold costs and things like that. And she did, you know, the analysis of this property was absolutely spot on. It was perfect. You know, she laid low, and I told her, I said, you're getting ready to refi this out. I said, don't go buy furniture, don't go buy cars, don't run your credit cards up. I said, you have to lay low. I said, don't take a vacation right now. I said, just stay where you are, lay low, lay low, lay low. And sure enough, and she did. You know what I mean? She really did. She understood everything that I was sharing with her, and ultimately, you know, she was able to get it refinanced. And when she went to the credit union, you know, it was a slam dunk because they saw that she had already renovated it, that she had already had sweat equity into it and experience. She was already working on getting that first tenant in there, and you know, they were thrilled to be able to do that loan for her, and they really, really loved working with her. So actually not a beginner question, Javier. No question is a beginner question. We love being able to help. All right, let's see here. Mr. John, what are the rental rates and cash flow on the property? Well, I think we've actually already answered this, but the rental rates right there where Christina are, I feel she accepted a little bit less than what she could have got, but we also agreed that A, she liked the tenants, B, she was comfortable where she was. So, Christina, we have a 1-bedroom and a den, and then a 2-bedroom. So what is your, and they're the exact same square footage.
Mhm.
So what are you getting for rent on both of the units
Um,
individually?
the first floor, one bedroom is 800, and then for the second floor, I took it for 880.
But I believe she could have gotten 900, 950 for both. But it's not always about what's the highest rent you can get, because if you have a resident that's got a great application, their background is great, you know, Christina and I also talked about, are we going to sit there and nitpick over $50 a month or, you know, $100 a month and take a tenant that may not be as well qualified
Mhm.
versus someone that is really well qualified that we know is going to pay their rent on time every month. And
Right.
so far, she's been very, very happy
Mhm.
with the residents. In fact, she's not even collecting rent. She heard what I said. She taught the tenants how to go directly to her bank with
Mhm.
deposit slips. The tenants deposit their rent directly into Christina's operating account. She can
Yep.
go online and she sees the image of the deposit slip. She knows
Mhm.
the date that they made their deposit. She knows the amount that they made their deposit. She's not handling money. The tenant's not waiting for her to come pick up the rent or vice versa.
Mhm.
And she sees the beauty and why I shared with her that process. You know, you don't want to be walking around anywhere with wads of cash in your pocket collecting rent. It's not safe. It's just not safe.
Right.
And you know, this, you know, for her to have to get in her car and drive an hour, hour and a half in traffic and get there and the tenant's not there or whatever, right? She doesn't have to deal with that. You know,
Right.
all she's got to do is follow up with the tenant, and the tenant takes a photograph of the receipt, you
They
know,
do.
texts it over to her and
Yeah.
says, "Here, Tina, I just want to let you know I made my rent deposit today." You know, there's a lot of trust and a lot of respect that way. So, you know, it's good. The cash flow is awesome. She's starting to build her reserves back up, and
Yeah.
we're getting ready to break ground on that third floor, which is total bonus. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and that's just going to be amazing when we get that third floor done. Does she have to do it right now? No.
You know?
You know, if she wants to do it 6 months from now or a year from now, it doesn't matter. She's got the space there. It's going to be an
Yeah.
automatic, you know, extra 600 to, well, actually no, probably 700 to 800 a month,
Mhm.
because it's a big space. And you know, when she's ready to pull the trigger, we'll get it done. But hopefully, I'm going to see a signed contract here shortly on this 3 unit. So
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, so Neil says after all that, she's a pro after her first deal. Yay, Nikhil! I could not agree with you further. We've laughed, we've cried, we've celebrated. Um, she literally in 1 year, in 1 year's time, working a full-time job that is heavily demanding.
Mhm.
Um, you know, like I said, literally 50, 60 hours a week. You know, I'm pulling her out to the site. She's coming out nights and weekends, and we're dealing with the contractors. And, you know, she's sneaking outside or into the bathroom to text me at lunchtime or this to have a call or to do a conference call with the GCs. No matter what, Christina made time to make this happen. And it's magic. You
It
know,
is.
it happened. Do I wish she had to go through the adversity of the GC? No, but I do know this. It has made her one hell of a strong woman.
Mhm.
As an investor, there isn't a whole lot now that she hasn't experienced that she's not going to be able to deal with in the future. You
Right.
know, she's dealt with appraisers, she's dealt with getting
Mhm.
her UNO, she's dealt with permitting and zoning, she's dealt with a refinance. I mean, every aspect of this and being a part of Inner Circle has just been priceless. And
Yes.
you know, she is a pro.
Yes.
She's my fun size pro. She packs a mean punch, in all of 4'8". She's got a beautiful heart, a beautiful spirit, you know, a beautiful smile, and it's so exciting to see someone realize their dream. That you don't have to get 200 units. or as
Right.
an investor to have all the big guys and the gurus make you feel like, you can't be a multi-unit investor. Multi to me is more than one.
Hmm.
And you know what? If we can take these 2 units down at 30,000 and 3 units and 4 units, within a 2 to 3 year period, you're looking at 30, 40, 50 unit portfolio. Guys, that's all you need to retire. I
Right.
mean, seriously, it doesn't take much. So, it's really, really exciting, and we've been getting a lot of people asking, how do we do this? What do we do? What's the inner circle? Et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to share with you guys that on August 5th and 6th, we're going to be doing a 2-day multi-unit immersion live on site, bus tour, going out live on site, seeing property. Try to convince Christina, maybe we can do a drive-by of her building, only because it's
Sure.
occupied now, so we can't get
Right.
into it.
Right.
But if you want to go to this link, I'm going to leave this link up here now, and actually register for this 2-day workshop. $67 for the whole entire 2-day workshop. And guys, seriously, that is just to cover the cost of lunch and food. Lunch will be provided. We are going to be going on a big, huge, beautiful AC charter bus. You're going to see an apartment building. You're going to see a big multi-unit assisted living home, and show you a little bit around the area. We're going to be learning about markets and things to do and things not to do, and how you can get into multi-unit and what it takes to be successful, just like Christina. So go to bit.ly.com. I'm sorry, it's bit.ly/must, MUST workshop, and you can get registered. This is local. This is Capital City REIA. We'll be meeting at the Greenbelt Marriott right there in Greenbelt, just like we do with all of our workshops. This will be a very special workshop, though, because it's a 2-day. And, people tell me I'm all the time crazy, and I am. I know I'm abnormal. Um, Many people told me on Saturday that I was insane to do the workshop that we did for $47. But, guys, I want to keep it affordable. It doesn't need to be outrageous. I just want to be able to cover the cost of the bus and, things like that. But the knowledge that I share, these experiences, this is because I love you. This is because this is my life. It's because it's what I want to do. And, Christina is now truly addicted. She can say, hi, my name is Christina. I am an addict of real estate. And, she eats it, breathes it, sleeps it. She's excited about it, and she sees what her future is going to look like. So thank you guys so much again from the absolute depths of my heart. I apologize for the craziness with the technology last night. I was panicked. After 2 hours on the phone with the webinar people, we got it all worked out, and so glad, so thankful for them. We had an amazing tech support, and Olga, thank you so much for bringing all this to fruition. I couldn't do it without you. Christina, thank you for being here to share your incredible story. It's such an honor, and I love you so much. I am so proud of you, and the magic has just begun, baby. And we're going to go out and rock 2017 out on a high note with another property. So,
yeah, definitely.
Thank you for touching my life, making such a difference in my life, everybody. I look forward to seeing you on August 4th and 5th.
Yes.
And look forward to seeing everybody on the 4th Wednesday of this month at our main Capital City REIA event. So go to meetup.com. You can get registered on Meetup. Just like Christina said, everything's on Meetup.
Everything's on Meetup.
We look forward to seeing you guys. So without any further ado, I'm going to let this beautiful young lady and Olga enjoy the rest of their evening. Mwah! I love you guys all so much. This was recorded. It is going to be up on a replay. We'll get it out to everybody. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you so much for being with us. Take care. Here's to your extreme success, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.